First Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. What's up, Holmes?
Beware your host, Jonathan Holmes.
Hi, everybody. So thank you for joining me on the show. I've got to keep my hand on a wire. Tell me if it gets blurry, and I'll try to wiggle my wire. Apparently, my wire's loose. And I'm here with Adam Tierney from WayForward. How are you, Adam? How are you doing?
I am doing good. How are you doing, sir?
Not too bad. A little sleepy. I just got back from New York City at around 5 in the morning from the Wii U launch. Slept for about... It was a nightmare. You're very good at making horror games, in my opinion. And if you were there, you would have gotten a lot of inspiration. It was a psychedelic fantasy turned evil, especially when the Mii's started dirty dancing with, still thinking about it. But it was fun. I had a great time. Don't mean to complain.
No, it's like a Thursday.
And WayForward has a Wii U game out already. Is that right?
We have a launch download title, which is the HD version of Switch Force, Mighty Switch Force.
Awesome that you guys got that in time for launch. You're one of, I think, 5 or so Wii U games.
Yeah, I think there's 5 games, so we're right up there. Yeah.
Yeah, Chasing Aurora, Little Inferno, and a couple of other ones. And then out of all the games, that's the one, in my opinion, the people should check out the fastest. That's the one I can assure most people will enjoy. I like all the games so far in the eShop, but they're pretty acquired tastes for the most part.
Yeah.
Where everyone who likes video games would like Mighty Switch Force, in my opinion. It's got nice action, but also keeps you thinking. It's fast-paced. Great character design. It's great game. You didn't work on that one, I don't think, so I'm not just complimenting you.
Yeah, all the directors kind of collaboratively kicked off the original Mighty Switch Force. It was kind of like a brainstorm of like the whole design team. But the HD one's been mostly driven by Austin Ivansmith, who was like one of the main guys on the first game. And I didn't work on it, but it looks fantastic. I mean, everything is beautiful, like HD art, and all the characters are done in traditional line art and very kind of like feature animation style. So similar to stuff we did on like A Boy and His Blob and Batman and stuff like that. So just everything looks really, really crisp and clean. And I know they threw in some, I don't know specifics off the top of my head, but I know that it's throwing in some additional stuff too. But yeah, I've played it a few times at Austin's desk since he sits right next to me, and it's pretty awesome.
That's great. I'm really excited for you guys to be kind of there at the Wii U launch, so your presence is known to everybody who's getting involved with the Wii U. And in the line, I met a lot of people that didn't actually buy a Wii, but were actually sold on the Wii U just based on commercials and their friends and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see if, at least right out the bat, there's a new audience for Nintendo based on their new console. Yeah,
that's cool.
But anyway, how are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm going to start at the top with you. When did you start at WayForward, and how did you get involved with the company?
Well, I started doing pixel art as just kind of like a hobby around college. When I'm a very old individual like yourself, and I graduated college in 2000, so around like 99, 2000 when I started getting into pixel art. And then just kind of like ran with hobby dev circles like GBA dev and DS dev and things like that, and started picking up freelance jobs. And I remember I was I really hung out on the IGN boards, and I freelanced for them for a while. And Matt Bozon, our creative director, hung out on IGN too. We're both kind of friends with Craig Harris, who was always like the champion of the early Shantae games and extreme sports, like early WayForward, like the really kind of like cutesy pocket stuff. And so he saw me posting one day about a pixel gig that I got, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you do pixels and you live right next to us. You should come up." And so I came up and I did talked to them a little bit, did an animation audition, and eventually just came on as a freelancer and worked on a few things. Like my first thing was a Batman Leapfrog game, but one of the first major things was Sigma Star Saga on GBA. And so we were doing 4 games at the time, and that was Matt's game. And I came on as an animator, and over the course of the game, because I really like more of my kind of like background is writing, and I was an English major, and I almost became an English teacher and stuff like that. So it was just kind of very odd that I kind of fell into pixel art as a living for a short period. But when we were working on Sigma Star, I kept bugging him like, "Hey, can I design an enemy, and can I create a little scenario over this?" And and I kept like prodding him to give me more and more, and then eventually ended up just being the assistant director on the game. So between the two of us, like, you know, we collaborated very much on the enemies and bosses and all that kind of stuff. So that was the first thing where I kind of rose up the ranks from the animator to assistant director, which a lot of the things we do here, like the same with like Sean and Austin, like we have kind of a training period where you go up the ranks and become an assistant director, which is just kind of shadowing the director on everything. Mm-hmm. That was the first big thing, and then after that I just got my own.
That's awesome. And then did Craig Harris, who's at Sega now, that's my understanding, did he have anything to do with getting WayForward on Aliens Infestation? Because that was such a match made in heaven. And he's a big Aliens guy.
I think because Aliens Infestation started a long time before it actually came out. I think he was still at IGN when we were initially pitching and working on the game. But once it, because basically it was coinciding with the console game, the Gearbox one, and so as that one was still in development, this one was never quite ready for release. Even though we did the bulk of the work quite a few years before, you know, it was released, and he was still at IGN. But I think when it came out, he was like a big champion for it, and definitely since then we've had lots of chats with him, and he's, you know, still a big WayForward fan, and we're still a big fan of his.
That's awesome, man. He's a great guy. He gave me Mario toys. For no reason once, the first time we met. He was just like, you look sad, have this. I was like, thanks. I was drunk on Luigi-flavored absinthe at the time, so I was sad. And he just had, out of the kindness of his heart, started cheering me up. He's a heck of a guy.
Luigi absinthe would make you giggly, and it doesn't seem like something that would make you sad. He's such a cheerful character.
He is, but he doesn't taste that cheerful. I don't do well with alcohol in general. It just makes me sleepy and confused. And absinthe. It's the first time.
You and Craig are like, you're the very, when I think of Nintendo-esque guys that are just absolutely in love with everything Nintendo, you guys are near the top of the list.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. There are some things I don't like about Nintendo. I wish Nintendo of America would publish more weird games, more M-rated games like they do in Japan.
Yeah.
I wish Nintendo were more quick to try to win people over who have written them off. They don't do much to try to dispel a lot of the myths about them. But in terms of developers, I love them. I can't help it.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about them as a developer is at least with like their AAA titles with their major licenses, they have such confidence. They seem to just know what they are. I mean, you see a lot of games out there nowadays that are really kind of like trying different types of gameplay or mixing it up or changing around what each license is, and you know, with the Mario games and Zelda, I mean, most of those ones that come directly from Nintendo just seem like they have such a fierce idea of what they want to be, I guess.
Yeah, they feel strongly about the identity of their games, and they want to just make the game what they originally envisioned and not cater to the audience necessarily. And if the audience doesn't want it, then they'll make another game for that particular audience.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's why Other M smelled so poorly to a lot of people, because it just felt like they were trying to cater to the Mass Effect audience a little bit. Kind of lost their way on that one.
I don't know. I actually haven't really played that one that much, but I don't know. I mean, there's something to be said for just, you know, making a pure game experience and just kind of sticking to the type of game you want to make, because ultimately the audience is going to come. So the less catering you do, the more you're going to have that fantastic experience with the people who do like it.
Which brings us to the last game that I know of that you worked on, Silent Hill Book of Memories, a game that came from a Silent Hill fan, from you.
Oh, absolutely.
Plays very differently than most other Silent Hill games.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I think all the Silent Hill fans wanted, was a multiplayer Diablo-esque dungeon crawler. That's what we listened to all the Silent Hill fans on Facebook and YouTube, and that's what they were all clamoring for.
How did the, because there's a lot of directions you could have gone. How did that direction come to be? Was that through you and Konami, or was that mostly from you at WayForward pitching it to Konami as that type of game? Or
I mean, it was definitely it was a vision that Konami had. So I mean, that's you know, I think there's a kind of common misperception. I see a lot of people saying like, why did Tom Hewlett do this, or why did WayForward do this? And it's not like we were handed Silent Hill and we said, oh goody, we get to make like a very, very strange Silent Hill game. I mean, our preferences are, I love the traditional stuff, and Tom loves the traditional stuff. I mean, he just worked on Downpour before and at the same time of this, so he has not standard, but kind of like the traditional Silent Hill vibe on most of his games. This was something that Konami wanted to do. They wanted to do a spin-off game. They wanted to try some things that they've always thought about, like, how does Silent Hill work in multiplayer? Or how does Silent Hill work as something that is programmatically generated and goes on forever? And, just kind of trying a couple different ideas. The fans, I mean, it's a shame that some of the people are, kind of reacting very poorly just to the idea without trying it out. It is very different for the series, and I mean, I know that like all the fans out there, like, Silent Hill they're up at the top as far as just kind of like being very reactionary and being very protective of their brand. But yeah, sorry. As far as the game itself, Konami had certain ideas that they wanted. They wanted 4-player. They wanted the structure of the way that it's programmatically generated dungeons, the way that you're going deeper zone by zone. So a lot of the kind of high-level stuff was already in place before WayForward came on board. And then we did a pitch process and worked directly with Tom quite a bit and came up with a lot of the specifics, like, well, how does the combat work in this game? How are you getting weapons? We knew that Konami knew that they wanted to have it kind of be like a best of for the series as far as like which creatures come back and which environments came back and stuff like that. But there's definitely, I mean, if you play through it, there's a lot of like WayForward-esque stuff. I mean, we have like, bosses that become whack-a-mole and bosses that become like Ganon light bouncing and stuff like that. So, once we actually started kind of digesting it and fleshing everything out, I think that it feels very WayForward-y, even though visually it looks nothing like the rest of our games. But yeah, it was pretty collaborative. It was cool.
Yeah, it sounds great. It sounds like a real challenge, though, to come on board with a series that you really love and want to stay true to, with a lot of new ideas that you have to try to integrate into your idea of Silent Hill, and then try to come out with something that's both Konami, WayForward, and Silent Hill all at once. Yeah, I mean, and it was kind of interesting because when we started production, we actually tried to do something that was, we started with like a PS3 demo, just as like a proof of concept, and I think it was Joystick. One of the sites ran some images of it, which was, it's more of a traditional kind of view and everything. But when we started Book of Memories, we actually tried for a while to make it a very faithful traditional Silent Hill experience as far as like how your character moves and how the enemies move and just the progression and the tone and all that stuff. And the problem was just that it didn't really work when you have something where you're running around a dungeon and you're from that like distant kind of Diablo-esque perspective and you've got multiplayer. It was just very boring. So you walk into a room and then there's a nurse. Like when you're this close, the nurse is like very terrifying, but when you're zoomed out and you just see this little dinky nurse like shuffling towards you, there's no terror. There's no kind of like worry or anything like that. So I mean, there were kind of at the beginning of development, maybe like a few months in, we basically just said, look, we've got to make the best game possible. So we can't keep trying to make it a traditional Silent Hill game if it's just not going to work as a Silent Hill game with those parameters. So that's when we started kind of making it gamier, making things explode, giving all of the enemies kind of, very gamey type of like attributes and attacks and stuff like that. And I know a lot of people will say that's kind of even, more sacrilege because it gets further away from the original series, what they're known for. But ultimately, we have to make the best game possible. It has to be a fun game. And I think that's the main thing is like, you'll see the reviews now. Some are very positive, some are very negative. But even the negative ones, which are usually saying like, oh, it's not Silent Hill, and they're angry about that, they're still saying that it's fun. They're still saying it's addictive. So I feel like it did a good job in that regard. Yeah, absolutely. It's for me, Silent Hill has always been about the mythos and the atmosphere. And honestly, the gameplay is one of the weaker sides to it. Just beating a giant cockroach to death with a pipe.
Yes.
It really spooked me too much. It was scary when I was getting chased around by, of course, Pyramid Head in the second one. Yeah. There's some legit scares, and the atmosphere is great. And you took all of that atmosphere from that kind of pushed out camera angle and tried to add a lot of gameplay to it to make it more dynamic and make you pretty deathly afraid of getting killed in that game.
Yeah, I mean,
that's really high.
Yeah, I think that's been kind of one of the more kind of dividing, elements of the game is that it's a hard game and it is at times a mean game. But it's something that it's not a traditional game. This is not something where you go through the 4 or 5 environments and you're done. We've told the story and you're completely done with it. This is something that, even from a story perspective, from a character perspective, everything around you was built with the idea that you could potentially be playing this endlessly. So, I mean, in that regard, we needed to put in elements that would keep it interesting and keep it challenging and stuff like that. So, I mean, as you're going through it, we didn't want to make like a grind fest or anything, but we wanted to make it so that you can't just coast through it, because it's not really, there is a story. And actually the story is kind of one of the more interesting things, because it took people, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks after release before they actually figured out like what the story is. Everyone was just saying, oh, there's all these little notes and there's the little TVs. They didn't realize until later that those notes and TVs are changing based on what you're doing in the game, and then those things are changing your endings and changing your apartment, and like everything in this game is this massive puzzle that, from the story perspective, Tom Hewlett kind of spearheaded. But as far as we really kind of had to add more because we didn't have the risk of we didn't have the story risk. You weren't as afraid as when you're seeing things in a very close third person perspective. So we needed to up the ante as far as, I'm not afraid because I can't see what's around that corner, but I'm afraid because I just walked into a room and I might lose what I've gained, or I might get killed, or I'm clinging for my life, that sort of stuff.
Were there any movies that influenced your kind of attitude towards the writing or the way to induce fear with this new kind of Silent Hill? Was there, not just movies, any other movies or games or any other medium that kind of gave you some inspiration?
I'm not so much movies. I mean, I'm a huge film buff, but we really we started by just looking at the games themselves and kind of breaking everything down. And I mean, that was kind of one of the interesting things. Like when we did the puzzle system of the game, I actually went through every puzzle in every previous Silent Hill, and I was figuring out okay, this is a box puzzle, and this is a puzzle where you're reorganizing pieces, and this is a puzzle where it's a wordplay. We tried to kind of boil the essence of all that stuff down into the game. One of the kind of common misconceptions, unfortunately, about the game is I see a lot of people online saying it's just some random dungeon crawler and they slap Silent Hill on it, and totally no. From way before WayForward was involved, this was always Silent Hill. And I think people really are just getting caught up on, that new camera perspective and the fact that the action combat's a little more aggressive. Everything about it is super Silent Hill. As far as other influences, the biggest one for me that I don't think anybody has really picked up on is Dead Rising. Just the way that our weapons work and the way that you're grabbing weapons and their durability and you're shifting between them, and just kind of that fun experimentation with everything you found. That was a big influence on me as far as, the moment-to-moment combat stuff.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that, but now that you mention it, it totally makes sense. I'm going to say something uncouth.
Sure.
I feel like a lot of people love the idea of Silent Hill, but don't actually love playing Silent Hill anymore.
Yes.
And you've seen the games. They get get talked about a lot in the press because they share the mindset. I mean, there's a lot of mind real estate. I'm trying to think of the right term. People, yeah, I think you know what I mean. People think about Silent Hill it's in the gamer psychology.
It's very precious to a lot of people.
Exactly. It holds a place in our hearts in the press, and also people will play it. But when it comes to actually playing a new one, the sales just generally haven't been there for a while, and they've tried to do new things to try to shake it up, like Shattered Memories, which it's kind of the opposite of your game. It's Silent Hill without any combat. It's just all kind of story and running away, which was an interesting take on it, but that didn't sell as much as they had hoped. And your game, to me, is showing people a side of Silent Hill that's always been there, but a lot of the fans have kind of forgotten what Silent Hill is. They love the idea of it, but the reality of it is something they're more distanced from. That's something I've observed. You don't have to agree with me on that if you want.
No. I mean, I do to an extent. I mean, I think that there's a myriad of different type of Silent Hill fans. I mean, that was kind of one of the nice things about the game is when it was first announced, I remember we looked at the YouTube feedback and stuff like that, and it was like 99% like dislike. But as we've done press, like Jim Sterling at Dtoid was a huge proponent of it, just like getting the word out and doing big interviews with us and stuff like that. The more that we talked about the game, Tom and I, the more a lot of people kind of turned around and said, oh, this is kind of interesting. And so once we actually came out, we found that there are still people that are saying, I don't want to experience this. I don't want to give it a chance. I hate it. It's not Silent Hill. But there's a lot of people that are have now warmed up to it. It's been really exciting looking at like forums like GameFAQs and some of the Silent Hill forums where they're trading tips back and forth and like kind of dissecting the puzzles and stuff like that. I mean, it's a weird series though, yeah, because the bitter fans are probably the most bitter that I've seen. I mean, I've seen people at least like half a dozen times say the comment, like if somebody says, what Silent Hill do you want? They will say, I don't want any Silent Hill. I want this series to die. And that to me, that just seems very strange, like somebody that would love a franchise so much that they don't want it to exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for certain people like that, I don't think we can really do that much. Hopefully, maybe they'll happen upon the game at some point, and they'll check it out, and maybe they'll find some stuff that they like in there. But for the people that are, who I would consider more just kind of the traditional Silent Hill fans, like not the bitter ones that have heard of this fantastic series or are just obsessed with like the lore of it, but not actually, like you said, playing the games that much. I think that those people, the people that actually try it, will find a lot of interesting stuff in it. We tried to. I think it came from Konami, the idea that it would be like a remix as far as like the worlds and the creatures and stuff. But we really took that across the board. So as far as like weapons and as far as artifacts and story elements and stuff like that, we just got more and more just obsessed with like we want to have every fun. Basically, we wanted like it so that anybody who loves Silent Hill could say, "Oh, I hope there's X in it," and we would say like, "Yes, that's totally in it." So it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun just kind of like interpreting those villains and those weapons and stuff like that.
Yeah, some people have said, "Oh, it's like Silent Hill fan game. It's not like a real Silent Hill game." And my response to that has been, "Yeah, isn't that awesome? Fans of Silent Hill made like an awesome game that shows what they love about the series and also things about the series that they wanted to reinterpret and show you in a new way." So I'm all about it. I'm personally all about it.
Yeah, and everybody knows that the original series was not goofy in any way. Like they did not have lightsabers and laser pistols and Sailor Moon costumes or anything like that. Like this is all stuff that we've created for this game, obviously.
Yeah, it's a possessive fan base, and they somewhat like Star Wars fans in a way. They know what Silent Hill means to them, and that's the only kind of Silent Hill they want other people to make.
Yeah,
and then of course I'm speaking quite broadly. Not every Silent Hill fan is like that, but there's a contingent of fans that are so emotionally connected to the series that it's like seeing their girlfriend making out with a new guy. It makes them sad. I don't blame them. Your emotions are valid, guys.
And everything they're saying, Tom and I felt the same way. I mean, we, to a certain degree, like we love traditional Silent Hill games. There's honestly no brand out there that I want to work on more than this. Like, I actually wanted to work on a Silent Hill game more than I would want to work on an original game or anything. I'd rather work on Silent Hill than a Metroid or a Mega Man or a Mario or any of those. Like, it was literally like my number one brand.
Wow.
So it was perplexing when we first got in. It's like, yeah, I finally get to work on this, and then it's like, wait, what is this game again? And it's just it's the from the top level stuff. It's very unlike what everybody's played in the series before. But again, it's a spin-off game. I think a lot of people were like very afraid, like, oh my gosh, this is what Silent Hill is now, and they've always said this was a spin-off game. This is its own thing. This is experimenting in 4-player and experimenting in handheld and all that kind of stuff. So it was never going to replace traditional Silent Hill. This was just something else that they were kind of bringing to the table.
Yeah. I hope people give it a shot. So many questions have come in.
Absolutely.
I'm going to get to them in a second, but before we do, you directed both Aliens Infestation and Centipede Infestation.
Yeah, I directed Aliens, and then I was one of directing, 2 people directing Centipede.
How come they're both infestations?
It was complete coincidence. And yeah, and it was kind of strange because we had both of the publishers come to us and say, "Oh, here's the title," and it was kind of weird because we couldn't immediately tell them because you can't break an NDA with one just to serve the other or vice versa. So, ultimately they found out. But, I think a lot of people, I saw a few comments where they're like, wow, WayForward really likes that word infestation. But it was complete coincidence, both of those titles, publishers.
So interesting. It's weird how you see words pop up in game titles. Right now, I think we're on kind of a Revelations kick.
Yeah.
We'll probably go back to Chronicles pretty soon.
Uh-huh.
But we got some questions coming in.
Sure.
CJ Melendez is a great guy, big Silent Hill fan, big horror fan, asks, any plans to tweak, add, or change anything to Book of Memories via an update or DLC?
I couldn't really speak to that. And I know CJ, like we talk all the time. Yeah, I mean, that's something where, if anything like that would be done or if anything like that would be announced, that would have to come from Konami.
Sure.
Sorry.
Do you think it's possible, though? Are you allowed to talk about possibilities?
Oh, I mean, yeah, anything's possible.
Yeah. I bet Konami will make that decision based on interest in the game and whether the resources will justify the use of that. So, yeah, I hope so. Urfer Dajini, I can never pronounce that right. I'm so sorry. I feel like such a turd. Well, he wants to know what your favorite Silent Hill is out of the whole series.
Overall, it's number 2, like just about every Silent Hill fan out there. But it's number 2 just for the story and for the characters, for James and then Mary and Maria and all that. I got the first time I played it, I got the in water ending where she's reading the letter and she starts breaking down, and it's like, oh my god, like video games are so sad. It was one of the most emotional kind of endings I'd ever seen in a video game up to that point. So 2 for me is probably overall the best. I think 2 is the best in terms of story and characters, and then also just the atmosphere was fantastic. I remember one of my favorite things about it was and maybe I'm remembering this wrong because I haven't played it in a couple years now. I remember going through like a prison area or something at one point, and I kept hearing all the skittering, but you had a non-adjustable camera, so I'm like, man, what's up with that? What's up with that creepy sound? And then I noticed later on, you look at the instruction manual, and it's an upshot of James, and you see the ceiling just littered with bodies and stuff. So kind of that subtlety and that weirdness was just fantastic. 2 overall, but if I break down the individual stuff, I really like a lot of 3. I think 3 for me is the best art design, and Heather is just my favorite protagonist. I think she's really cool. That was kind of one of the nice things about Book of Memories is, even though Heather is not specifically in it, these are characters around her age, and they kind of have the same kind of like energy and life to them and stuff like that. So that was very fun to work on. Yeah,
she's instantly relatable and likable, and that made it all the more concerning. You don't want to see anything bad happen to her, and you don't want anything bad to happen to you, and you kind of share the same ego space while you play. So really great game. I wonder. I'll get to another question. Seika asks, for the main series, has the classic Silent Hill mechanic of having limited and more difficult gameplay become kind of outdated for modern gamers that expect more of a cinematic experience? And where do you think the series should go from here? What a good question, Seika.
Where do I think it should go, or where do I think it is? Wait, what are they asking specifically?
They're asking if you think that the classic Silent Hill gameplay is outdated in some level. And so answer that, I guess, first, and then from there, that'll kind of inform the question, the second question, which is where should the series go from here, the main series?
I think that, there's kind of 2 sides to it. You look at a game like Silent Hill 2, I think that a lot of the mechanics are very clunky. A lot of the way that you're, winding up for weapons, like having these long hand animations and stuff, I don't think it's the way that people would do things nowadays. At the same point, I know a lot of people will make the argument that having James less able at combat made it more of a genuine horror game. Like there was, they didn't want, as opposed to Homecoming, where you're like a little more aggressive and you're more combative. A lot of people like the fact that you are kind of a lousy shot and lousy, at swinging pipes and stuff in the old games because it makes you feel more afraid. I mean, obviously it's being updated very, every single game. Downpour's fairly traditional. I really dug Shattered Memories a lot. And I obviously had nothing to do with that. I was just like a fan of that. But I like it when the series takes risks. And I like I went into it saying, like, this is strange. Why don't I have an inventory? Why am I not, killing the creatures? Why am I just running? But I think that there's something to be said for trying new things, especially in a game like Silent Hill. I mean, Silent Hill is supposed to just be about personal fears, like, loss and terror and all that kind of stuff. So I think if you kept the same type of gameplay over and over for every kind of character, that's not really in the spirit of it. I mean, the town is supposed to be tailoring all these nightmares to the individual, so it makes sense that you would have a game like Shattered Memories where it's really story-based. I mean, that game was almost like an adventure game, like how much dialogue there was in it, and all that kind of, like, the changes that I can make on the world based on what I'm doing, like people are changing their appearances and stuff like that. I think it's interesting, and I hope that as they go forward, they keep experimenting with stuff like that, because otherwise it just gets kind of stale. I mean, if you can only try and remake Silent Hill 2 so many times,
Absolutely. It's a series to me that has always been the alternative to whatever Resident Evil's doing. Resident Evil came out, that was kind of the definition of horror, and then Silent Hill came out and said, we're not going to be Resident Evil. We're going to do everything they didn't do. We're going to make melee combat more of a focus, and we're going to mess with you more psychologically, and we're going to have this huge, surreal storyline. And it really worked for people that had already been so satiated on what kind of mainstream survival horror was.
Yeah.
Silent Hill was there for people who wanted something riskier and stranger. Yeah. And just about every game in the series has delivered on that, some riskiness and some strangeness. So that's what I go for in the brand. Yeah. And I hope they keep pushing that forward. Whatever the mainstream's doing, I hope they're willing to do something different, because that's where their identity lies for me. Speaking of Shattered Memories, was their gameplay mechanic around choices you make, the way you answer questions, who you talk to and when, and where you spend time in the game actually changes the storyline of the game and the look of the game? Did that influence Book of Memories at all?
I mean, probably from like a very high level. I mean, our story was actually kind of really pushed by Tom because, well, there are so many systems in this game. There are so many, like, it's a full-fledged RPG, and between all the combats and all of the mastery systems and the Pokedex type, like, encyclopedias and all that stuff, there was a lot of stuff to do. So I actually, I was very glad that Tom had the time to write the story, and so he's the only writer on the game. He really wanted this kind of organic structure, and obviously he was, very instrumental on Shattered Memories, so I'm sure that there's kind of like some kind of similar thought process there. But we didn't specifically look at it and say, let's do that again. It was more of the choices as far as that kind of stuff for our game came from the idea that Konami said, we want an endless game. So, I mean, it really is an endless game. If you just keep going deeper and deeper, it keeps going forever. And as you're going, like, the zone selection, you start seeing new weird art, and we start, like, revealing more and more weapons and more artifacts and stuff like that. So a lot of our decisions just came from the fact of saying, if we have people that are playing this for, like, 50, 80, 100 hours, we want them to find new stuff when they go through the game, which is very unnatural for Silent Hill. Like most Silent Hill games, you play your, like, 6 to 8 hours and you're done. Maybe you play it through it again and you get a couple endings or stuff, but it's a very linear experience. So, in this game, it was really more just about feeding in as many variables and as many things that could possibly change or kind of organic structure so that people are just seeing new content as they go deeper and deeper.
Awesome. I'm so glad you did that. For doing that. It's true. Slow Holmes asks, what was the best weird Silent Hill ending for you? I actually haven't seen all of the Silent Hill endings. They're games that I've looked them up later on YouTube or whatnot, but I haven't experienced a lot of them. For me, the UFO endings are always just never gets old for me for some reason. They go about them in such a way that feels fresh every time.
I mean, I would sound egotistical. I would say that my favorite is the Book of Memories one, but I feel like I could say that because it was really mostly Tom Hewlett writing and Mariel Cartwright of Skullgirls doing the art. It's really kind of the all-encompassing, like, it is the ultimate joke ending. It's like it brings in elements from every previous joke ending. It brings in elements from all kinds of games. It's really long. It's full VO. It's got music. So it was a really, really cool production. And we're excited how it came out. Plus, it's kind of comic booky, and I'm a big comic book geek, so it was cool in that regard. That would be my favorite. But aside from that, I don't know. I tend to like the more serious endings. Like I like the creepy stuff, like in 3, where it's just that silent image of Heather holding the bloody knife. Like I like that kind of stuff. As far as the goofy endings, I thought the one in Downpour was pretty good. I liked the song enough that I bought it on my iTunes later. So that was a pretty good one with the birthday cake. And sorry, spoilers. But that was a good one.
Wow, I haven't seen that ending in Book of Memories yet. You got the artist from Skullgirls to work on that? That's incredible.
Yeah, Mariel Cartwright she does a lot of stuff for WayForward, and we're friends with her because we're based in CalArts and she's from CalArts. And she actually did the joke ending in Shattered Memories. So if you've ever seen that with like the comic book kind of style, like the drawn characters, so it's very similar to that.
Huh. Wow. I really hope to get her on this show. I think you gave me her email a while back. I should definitely drop her a line. Yeah, hopefully she'll come on. Hope so. We can take more questions, but I want to talk to you about Aliens Infestation too. You were saying so many interesting things about that. And freaking Centipede. You made Centipede sound incredibly fun to talk about, which yeah,
you should talk about all of these things.
Yeah, I want to, but then the people are asking me questions. I don't want to be jerks to them either.
I could do shorter answers on the questions. Let's do that.
No, it's totally up to you. Sir Badurba, I think I said that right, asks, are you aware of any plans to port Book of Memories over to other consoles, handhelds, or otherwise?
If I was, I couldn't comment on it.
Right. Well, I'll announce that I would love to play it on the Wii U. Because it would be a perfect kind of intimate horror feeling on that pretty screen on the controller. Not that there's anything wrong with the Vita screen, also very nice, but it seems like that would be a good fit if it were to go additional places. Yeah. Could be fun. Shadowboy Tyler asks, would you ever consider making an HD Aliens Infestation on the Wii U similar to Mighty Switchforge HD?
I would. I loved working on that game. It would come down to Sega, and probably, go hit up Craig Harris and tell him you want that. Aliens was just so much fun, just because the team on it were just obsessive about those games and about, not the games, those movies and just that brand. So I would love to work on anything Aliens again, for sure.
I really hope that happens because the DS in general made me super sad. I love the console, but piracy just took over, and sales of DS games if it was a good DS game that people that really love video games would appreciate, it got pirated at least 2 million times. And not that all those piracy incidents would have been sales, but you did see a vast decline in DS sales as piracy went up, so there seemed to be a correlation there. So for me, now is the time to take all of those DS games and put them on the Wii U, put them on the 3DS eShop, because piracy isn't rampant on them, and they both have 2 screens. It's kind of a perfect way for those games to get a new life. So I certainly hope that happens.
Between GBA and DS and even like original Game Boy and stuff. Yeah, there's so many good gems. I just have like this box of just old games, and then I have to keep all the old systems because not everything transfers, and so it's like I have my SP Plus, and then I have my 3DS and stuff like that. But it would be nice if a lot of that stuff ended up being more frequently digital.
I hope so. I want to get rid of my GBA GameCube link cables too. I've got like 4 of those. It's time for them to go away because it's taking up so much space. But we should talk about Aliens Infestation because that was a game that, to me, I'd always heard rumors about it. It was like this, they couldn't do something that good. Yeah. They never understand the fans well enough to actually do something we really, truly want. Like a Metroid-ish, Contra-ish, because Metroid and Contra to me were like as close to the feeling of Aliens that you could get in a game when I was growing up. There was clear influences there. So to take Metroid and Aliens and mix it with Contra just seemed too, with Aliens seemed too smart. And then you guys just did it.
It's so obvious it could never have possibly happened, right?
Yeah, exactly. So how did that project get started? And am I right in thinking that there were some Contra and Metroid
Oh, absolutely.
influences?
I mean, it first went into production not too long after Contra 4 for us, and so the studio, it wasn't like right on the heels of it, but I mean, in terms of that's where our pixel art was at that point, and that's where our tech was and stuff like that. So it was a very natural progression for us to put it on there, and it was kind of cool because it was also we got to try out some stuff that didn't work on Contra 4 because of how traditional it was. So, I mean, little things that we wanted to experiment with, or some of us did, like me and Cole Phillips, who's now at Fifth Cell, was the lead designer on Aliens, and I was the director. We both really liked the idea of doing, experimenting with stuff in pixel-like, cover system and ammo reloading and conservation of your inventory and stuff like that. There was a lot of stuff that didn't what wasn't represented in Contra 4 that this seemed perfect for, because we really wanted people to kind of focus on the characters. As far as where it came from, it came from Sega came to us, and I think if memory serves, I think Sega basically came to us and said, you guys rocked it on Contra 4, so now go make Aliens. So I think it was specifically because we did a good job on that game that they came back and they said, do something similar with this. And then it was just kind of internally with the design, we were figuring out what we wanted to focus on and what kind of gameplay we wanted.
Huh. And how did you go about taking Aliens, which most people I know have complained that the Aliens games are too action oriented. They want them to be tense, they want them to be scary, and you guys pulled that off with 2D, no less. It's very rare. The only other 2D horror game I can think of that pulled it off as well was probably Lone Survivor, which, not coincidentally, probably was also made by a big Silent Hill fan who wanted to do a 2D Silent Hill and kind of reappropriated it in his own way. So yeah, for me, Silent Hill and Aliens Infestation are like two of the scariest 2D horror games going. So how did you go about trying to apply horror to that genre?
I mean, yeah, it's strange. It's kind of a similar situation to Book of Memories, where how can something be scary when you've got these cute little, characters, especially even more so in that, like we're doing pixel art. So they're, they're a little bit big-headed. They're a little bit kind of like, cartoony in that regard. So how do we make that scary? I mean, we do a lot of research at WayForward. So I think that's one of the things that we're kind of known for is whenever one of our games comes out, it shows that we have a firm understanding of what the old games are, and we do a lot of research into like all the elements and stuff like that. So one of the things that we did at the start of Aliens is we sat down and watched the movies. We really dissected Alien and Aliens, and then a little bit of Alien 3, and just kind of broke them down and said, like, what are these things? Like, why are these compelling? Why do we think they're great? I mean, Aliens, the James Cameron one for me, is the best action movie ever made. I just think it's absolutely phenomenal. And what we realized as we watched them is they're not really sci-fi action movies. They're really more just kind of slasher movies, in that you bring in all these characters, especially in the second one. You bring in all these characters, you make them so memorable and just lovable. Like, in a very short period of time, James Cameron makes you just totally fall in love with all these characters. And then one by one, you're just having a murderer in the shadows, like, hack them apart. And so that was kind of, once we realized, like, hey, let's do something like that. Let's create a game where you are loving all these characters and then just killing them one by one. That was kind of like the moment where like the game snapped for us, and we're like, oh, this will be fantastic. So so we did that. We put a lot of effort into making each Marine feel unique, and we gave them their own dialogue and portrait and all this kind of stuff, so that when you lost them, because it's permadeath in the game, when they die, you are never going to get them back. So there's like a full script written for each character. You're never going to hear their voice again once you let them die once. It's very, very mean, but kind of interesting too. That was a really interesting thing to do. And then as far as the atmosphere, it was really, I think it was a very careful choice on the artists. Working with guys like our main background guy is a guy that goes by Helm. His name's Telemachus, and his art style is very creepy and very kind of like, harsh angles and harsh colors. Almost kind of has like a like an Origin and like C64 style palettes and stuff like that. So we wanted something where it was very off-putting and lots of shadows and lots of blacks and just like really kind of like deep colors everywhere, so that as you went through the environment, you literally couldn't see everything. Then we coupled that with the animation, so we have the aliens actually kind of like spawning from the shadows and coming in from the darkness and popping up where you don't expect them, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was really just kind of, I think that the atmosphere in that game comes off pretty well, and people that say it is actually scary or it is actually tense, I would really just celebrate those guys and just say, like, you know, between the backgrounds and the animations, we had guys like Joachim Sandberg, who you interviewed on the show. He was one of the animators on that. Really just fantastic, subtle jobs from all the artists to make it feel more intense than you would typically in like a little handheld pixel game.
For me, and thank you for that excellent answer, I'll give you my reflection. The fact that you guys cared about those little details made me like scared to know you and to like connect with you. And I've said this before to people who've made really, I think I said it to the Hotline Miami guys, who also like just give you a feeling of like, these guys wanted me to feel this way about pixel art, like cute, adorable pixel art that I've grown up with. It's iconic, it's simple, it doesn't try to make you feel as though, you know, you're recreating reality. It's deeply embedded in an abstract fantasy, and they wanted to take that abstract fantasy and just like have this great new character that I think, oh wow, maybe there's going to be a new series about Lieutenant Colonel Anderson, and then nope, he's just totally dead. An alien just jumped out and just I'm thinking about just what aliens do to people in general.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic mix, probably scarier to me than a game that would have gone about it traditionally. I can't think of a traditional aliens game actually that scared me as much. So
well, a lot of them tend to be kind of very actiony, and I mean, this one is actiony, but it is at times a very slow-paced game. Like, there's a reason that we have a separation between a walk and a run, and because as you're going through, the aliens, if you're just rushing through, they'll pop out and they'll cheap shot you. You have to do everything very, very slow-paced and methodical. I think one of the coolest things in the game, my favorite thing was how the motion tracker came out. Because it's so iconic, like everybody knows the little bing, bing, you know, the little like kind of sound, and that was like one of the most tense things in the James Cameron movie. We actually tried to do it exactly like that originally, and we had a little motion tracker at the bottom of the screen, and we had the blips appearing on the motion tracker, but it just wasn't very readable at that size. It's like, well, it's so small, I don't know how far this enemy is away and what this information needs. And so we had a pretty robust style, like Castlevania style map that like fills in section by section, and we decided to put the blips on the map. And it's one of the most kind of one of the tensest things in the game for me, is because you go into a room and you know that there are 3 xenomorphs in there, and you know roughly where they are, but there's still that inching towards them and waiting for them to spawn, to where you go into reactionary mode and you start fleeing and you start like backpedaling. I mean, little things like that. Like, I love the fact that we have hold down the firing button, and now your mobility direction, your firing direction is locked, and you can backpedal and you can run away as they're chasing you. Like, all that stuff came out really nice. But yeah, it was really interesting to find the fear elements and just the way that those things came together, and definitely the motion tracker was like one of the kind of creepiest things in the game, I think.
yeah, and so true to the source material, and you guys really do your research. But the willingness you had with both Contra 4 and with Aliens Infestation to make the player feel totally screwed was great. Yeah, I love that.
I don't think there's enough games. And I mean, this is not like, you know, this is not like a rant or any kind of like, you know, saying anything about other developers, but I don't think there's enough risk out there. Or maybe it's not that there's not enough risk, but it's just that WayForward's mentality is very NES era. And if you look at the NES era, some of those games were just mean or tough, or you had to learn the rules. You couldn't just coast through it and get your story. You would die. You have to like keep retrying. You have to think through that stuff. So it was interesting to put that element of risk to make it so that you have a character that we've written and you know their dialogue, and it's like, oh, I love the goth chick, she's my favorite, and then it's like, oh, but you stepped on that face hugger and now you will never see her again. And even in the bestiary, I mean, not the bestiary, Marine profiles, I wanted to reinforce that law. So if you ever let somebody die, they get a big fat red X on their face, and it says status deceased. So it's like forever, as long as you have that game, you remember the time that you made that character die. And I really have to kind of commend Sega for like letting us run with that, because that seems like the kind of thing that a lot of publishers would say, well, I don't know if they actually have to die. Like maybe if they kind of die or something like that. But it was really cool that those guys over there backed that sort of a weird design. And when it finally came out, that was one of the things that really, like, we saw everybody in the forums like just loving. They loved the individual characters. They liked the fact, or were very worried about the fact. We would see people that are like, I want to play as Whistler, but I love him and I don't want to risk Whistler. And so there's kind of that like give and take of like, if you love a character, you have to be controlling them. But if you're controlling them, they could die because you can only swap in the save point. So there's that kind of internal struggle of like, you know, like when you're playing most modern games, you don't worry about your character. It's like, they'll respawn, or like, I'll make it to the next, checkpoint or something like that. There aren't that many games out there where you really have to worry about your characters anymore, I think. And so that was one of the most fun things in this.
Do you think that Sega gave you the allowance to take that kind of design risk and really punish players in a way that a lot of games today, I think, are too afraid to do? They want to make everybody at least mildly happy. They don't want to make players feel bad about themselves. There's a lot of... This whole generation, to me, has been about this weird obsession with telling video game players that they're good people. Not that they, are playing a game about a good person, but, achievements, just basically patting people on the back nonstop, or motion-controlled games saying, you are a good baseball player now, and you're really not. You're good at going like this. It's kind of been the theme of this whole generation, but your game will make people feel terrible about themselves.
Well, I mean, but here's the thing, is it's like, you feel bad, but that's the agreement. Like when you go to a slasher movie and the first girl gets killed, like the flirty girl gets killed, you don't say, "Oh, this devastated me. I am out of here." Like that's part of the game. That's part of the agreement. So, in that this is like a slasher film, I mean, that's something we actually saw people online. I think they're kind of like, you're used to the idea now of like, if I put in my 15 hours, I will get my story. Like, you won't fail me, game. I can coast through. I just want to, if I give you the time, I get my story. And so we'd see people online that were like really trying to hold on to like every Marine, like they would want to restart, and they would say like, I can't get past this boss because every time I go, I die once. And I, we actually kind of like gave them a little bit of feedback and just said, you're kind of supposed to, like, you're supposed to love a character, and then when they die, you're supposed to miss them, and then you're supposed to love the next character. Like, that's the whole thing. And that's the reason that there's 19 or 20 Marines in the game, is because we spaced out the difficulty so that you would not necessarily like be cheap and like have to lose a Marine, but we want you to, because we want you to have, Zoe Kennedy die, and then you move on to the next one. You're like, oh, well, who's this guy? Well, I'll never love him as much as I love her. And then after like, an hour, you're like, oh, we're best friends forever. So we wanted them to kind of go through those emotional highs and lows, and not just feel like they're just hitting buttons to make a movie keep going,
And it's something people would enjoy if they're willing to put themselves into it. But I'm finding more and more people think they know what they like about video games, and they're not always correct. If you give something, this is true for Book of Memories as well, if you are willing to give something new a try that maybe doesn't fit your concept of what you like. Happens with dating, too. I'll meet so many girls who go out to the bar and like, oh, I only like skater dudes. And then they meet some, good-looking jock dude who's just got great jokes and nice pearly whites.
Yeah.
And before they're in love.
Yeah.
You never know who you're going to fall in love with, people.
Of course.
Give it a try. You might fall in love.
And I think that there's something to be said for having memories in games. I think nowadays a lot of games are just like the way the developer makes it is exactly what you get. And so I don't have any unique memories of like a AAA FPS game, at least as far as the campaign, that you don't, because we got the exact same thing. I like things where there's a little bit of kind of organic structure. Like I remember I was really blown away by that in BioShock. I wrote or I talked to I forget which side it was, but about the idea of like I in the game got very attached to my Big Daddy, because you had the the whatever, like the plasma thing that would make him like a little slave for you. And so I just kept carting him around with me the whole time. And when he died, after like I couldn't say, I actually like I remember he was low on health once, and then I like ditched him. I'm like, all right, you're low on health. I'm just going to leave you behind. I went into the next room, and there was like a bunch of enemies. They started attacking me, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm almost going to die. And then out of nowhere, I hear this choo 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 choo, and he barrels in and starts beating the crap out of him, and he had like almost no health, and it was such a memorable experience for me that wasn't written. It wasn't like scripted or anything like that. It was something organic, and so that's what I like. I think that what games need more of those. Games need more things where somebody can get excited about something in a story, or how hard a boss battle was, or how there was some weird like gameplay element or something. They need stuff where they can share individual experiences that are unique to the individual players, and so that's something that I think is yeah, we probably try to put a lot of that in our Beeper games and like our Metroidvania games and stuff like that, is putting in things where one player will say, oh, I was really excited about this, and then the other players will say, I had no idea what that was, and then they'll go back and they'll play it and they'll re-experience it and stuff like that.
That makes me want, and everything you said has made me want you to make a Pikmin game. I think I should let you, because I get so attached to my Pikmin, and if like one dies, I just like reset.
Yeah.
I need all of them. Just there, and the ghost, I'm like, forget it. And also, Pikmin allows you to have so many unique experiences that are particular to the way you decided to explore the world, the Pikmin that you brought with you, if you're going to fight that enemy or try to sneak by it or sneak up on it, or you do a great job of that. I think.
You need somebody. I think you need Miyamoto to come behind you as you play and pat you on the shoulder and say, it's okay. They can die. Like, you can lose a few of them. It's okay, because now this is something now that you're talking about. Like, if you just always just had your Pikmin and they were just like, well, I lost my health, so now I'm gonna like do a pouty animation. But then the next round, now I'm like excited again. If there was like no kind of like loss to it, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But because you felt bad enough that you wanted to reset your game, and you don't want to lose these characters. Like, that's what games need. They need like emotional experiences, but not just emotional in the story, but emotional between the players and the gameplay. I mean, I've had emotional experiences with like 2600 games and stuff like that. I think that like that stuff. Like, if I think of like my top gaming moments, almost none of it came from like cinematic stuff or pre-scripted stuff. It's always something weird that happened, or something that broke in a game, or some exploit that I figured out that did something in a strange way. Like, those are the things that I think really stick with me.
Yeah. Now you're making me want you to make a Metroid game, because I love game breaking in Metroid, and just feeling like the world is a real place that the designers tried to build, but it's real enough that you can find things that even they didn't know about, even the gods of the game didn't intend. Some of the best Metroid games make you think that you found something they didn't know about, but it actually was planned. They're smart guys.
There was a Metroid especially. Like, I like Metroid, but there are people at this company that just love Metroid, like especially Matt Bozon, our creative director, and Sean Velasco, one of our other directors, are just huge diehard Metroid fans, and I'm sure they know exactly the kind of Metroid game they would want to make, the same way that I kind of know, the type of like Silent Hill game I want to make. But yeah, I love that stuff, and I mean, what's weird is like with Book of Memories, it was so organic that I saw stuff in my game that I'd never seen before. So like the retail copy came out, and I played through it just to like make sure there was nothing like too. No bugs or anything like that, and also just to play online with the people. And I would start seeing these weird organic stuff, and I was like, message Tom, and I would say, oh my gosh, I just saw this, and there was stuff that we didn't put in the game, but we put the parameters for it to happen. I remember there was one room I went into, because we have like factions, we have like blood enemies and light enemies and steel enemies, and they don't always like each other. And I went into one room, and there was what was it? It was like 2 schisms, I think, 2 blood schisms, and they start like coming towards me to attack me, and there's a light nurse there, and they bump into her, they do something to upset her, so the schism, or whichever enemy it was, is like rearing to attack on me, and then she swings at it with her weapon, with her pipe, and stops it, and then the other enemy started to attack, and she turned and she attacked that, and it was just this weird thing where I'm like watching my enemies in my game, and it feels like one of them is defending me. It feels like one of them is on my side, which is kind of thematic with the game. Like, we actually have little under the hood stuff like aggression levels and speed of enemies and stuff is like tweaking based on on your karma alignment and their karma alignment and stuff like that. So I mean, we coded all this stuff, but it was just so fascinating to see this nurse who was defending me and trying to protect me in my mind, in my own story. And I spared her. Like, I went through the game and I said, I put a little check mark on that room with the map, and I said, she gets a pass. And so I left her, and every time I went through the game, as I'm going through the areas, I would see her, and I would like smile every time I saw her. And as I went in there, like, if there were more enemies in there, she would be wailing on the other enemies. But I'm like, you're my buddy. Like, you're my little AI buddy.
Yeah, that's I have all these metaphors for how that was you taking on the god of the game. You went into mortal flesh and like got to know someone who really did appreciate you as their god.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to get into that because it'll make Christian sad, probably. No offense, people who are religious. Let's see. Randomly, 26 asks, any chance for a Lit sequel? Lit is a game we could talk about for a while. It's horror. It's puzzle. It's experimental for WiiWare. You guys took a chance on WiiWare, where a lot of developers were a bit gun-shy about the service due to its being harder to find new games. Is one of the things I've heard a lot about. But yeah, maybe we should talk about Lit a little bit in general for people who haven't heard of it, and then we can answer the question about
Lit is not specifically a Mighty game, but it came right before then. If it came out now, it might have been called Mighty because it's an original WayForward game that came out on WiiWare. I think it came out in 2009, and it was basically, actually, like, I think I can mention this because we mentioned it in an interview. So way back when, WayForward actually did a demo of Silent Hill on Nintendo DS. And it was a very fully polygonal, weird, traditional Silent Hill thing. And you know, like I said, I'm like, that's my favorite brand of all time. So after that, I would think I was in like a horror mindset. We're like, oh, we got to do something creepy. And so we ended up doing this little original game on WiiWare called Lit. And it's basically Silent Hill meets Adventures of Lolo. So we wanted to do something where it's structurally very rigid. Like, there are blocks, like, per block. It's like, this one is a flash. I mean, this one is like a lamp, and this one is a bookcase, and, you know, like, all of the things that any of that stuff gameplay could actually fit into Adventures of Lolo. Actually, at one point, because I used to be a part of like Atari 2600 hobby dev. I have a little game that I worked on and did the graphics for.
What's the game called?
That's called Fade Out.
Huh.
2 words, or maybe it was hyphenated. But it was like a spy game where you're the same colors as half of the environment. So you would be red guy, and you would hop into the red section, and then you would kind of remember in your mind where you're going, but you can't see yourself on screen, so that you could pop back out and surprise the other guy. And it was like a deathmatch game. But there's there's a bunch of cool guys still making Atari 2600 games. But at one point, I actually broke down Lit, and I did a bunch of like mock-ups that would have more or less worked within the specs of 2600 for Lit. I think I've said a few times to people, like, if your core gameplay couldn't work on something like a 2600 or an NES, if you need tech beyond that to make it enjoyable, then you don't have like a really good core gameplay concept. So Lit was something where we wanted to marry very simple gameplay, like, I walk here, this turns on, I walk here, here's a little island, but with the aesthetics of like a Silent Hill. So we had like all the creepy visuals and the students that are turned into creatures that are hiding in the shadows and stuff like that. It was a really interesting game. I actually did it concurrently with Aliens. Both of those games were at the same time. And it's the only time I've directed 2 games at the same time here, so I didn't get much sleep.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
As far as a sequel, I would love to work on a sequel. You know, we talk about possibilities of sequelizing all of our games, but we've just got so many things we're working on right now. But yeah, I would love to at some point.
It's so interesting. There's so many of the people who have been on the show, for whatever reason, share so many of the philosophies that you have on game design and WayForward in general. WayForward, when you talk about how, you know, you can't rely on just the graphics, I think James, who was on last week, called it whiting out. Is that right?
Oh, whiteboxing.
Whiteboxing, my mistake. That's something I've heard from so many smaller developers as well, not so much from larger developers. And just your philosophy on giving the players emotional highs and lows and not holding their hand throughout the entire experience and letting them have a unique experience for themselves. That's something that Jonathan Blow was saying, that the guys from Vlambeer were saying. It's it's so great to see a studio embrace those ideas and actually be big and expanding and taking on new employees and taking on brands like Batman and Aliens.
Yeah,
I mean, you guys have really made it with the indie philosophy.
Yeah.
You guys have expanded to being franchise guys. It's fantastic.
And we're still technically indie. We're very large indie, but I mean, we're a studio. We've never been owned by, at least since, we've never really been owned by like a major publisher. Voldy Way, who created the company and started with like Matt Bozon and Rob Buchanan, like our initial guys, he still owns the company. Everything still runs. We're a larger indie dev. Like, we're actually much larger even than when I started. I started in like 2005. But yeah, I mean, there's certain things, like I think James kind of touched on, like, the key principles of like way forward games, and I checked with Matt Bozon, so I'm probably paraphrasing, but like 3 of our major kind of pillars are: 1, we just have to have fun classic gameplay. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a horror game or if it's very story driven, you have to have fun doing the actual gameplay. So that's the first one. Second one is we have a big focus on just like beautiful art and animation, especially animation. And then the third one is we always have strong characters in our games. So that doesn't always mean the same thing. Sometimes we have games where we have characters that have a ton of dialogue. Sometimes we have characters that are completely mute, but we always put more effort into fleshing out those characters and figuring out exactly who they are, more than what the game actually reveals. So, I mean, any of our protagonists, like, any of the Marines in Aliens, or Jake from Lit, or like, Maisie from Centipede, all those characters, we could tell you guys stuff about those characters that you don't know, just because we had to know in order to make the games and to make it feel like there's a deep character and a deep kind of like story behind all that stuff.
Yeah, the level of dedication you have to fleshing out original characters you create and caring about the source material on each game you've taken. I mean, Brave and the Bold, which I believe you directed, totally felt like an episode of the show. And
that's how we pitched it. Is we went into Warner Brothers when we were pitching the game, and we said, you'll play the cartoon, like literally play the cartoon. And so we didn't want it to be, because the cartoon's phenomenal. I mean, I was like, when they first showed it and I saw the art, I was one of the first people, like everybody else, saying, this is not my Batman. This does not look like Bruce Timm. I don't like it. It looks campy. It looks like Adam West. I don't like Adam West. And now I think the Adam West show is awesome. But actually watching some of the episodes of Brave and the Bold, I'm like, this is so smartly written, and it's so true to the characters. And they're bringing in everybody. They're bringing in Booster Gold. They're bringing in like all these B heroes and Guy Gardner and stuff like that. So yeah, that was one where it was. We basically pitched it as, you'll play the cartoon. So we didn't just want like, here's a cutscene, now here's some walking, and it's silent, because they don't do that. The heroes, as they walk around, they're chatting back and forth, and they're constantly having a dialogue. So I kind of went overboard. The script for the game for Way Forward, this is huge, was a 400-page script that I wrote, and then we worked with Warner Brothers Animation. And so the idea is just the game would just never stop talking, because you don't stop talking in cartoons. Like, even as you're beating guys up, you're making quips and stuff like that. So as you're going through each stage in that game, we would have all these triggers where, like, Batman and Robin would be approaching something, and Robin would say, I bet he went up that air duct up there. And then you would see the air duct. So all these little things that make you feel, we wanted you to play the cartoon. We wanted you to feel like you're pushing along a narrative that is exactly like the source material, rather than like, the worst thing in the world is when you buy a game because you love the source material, and then you play it and you're like, wow, that doesn't feel like it at all. Like, they botched it. So that's one of the things we do, kind of exhaustive, ridiculous, just stupid research in our brands as we start them. Like, I'll watch every single episode. For Batman, I watched every single episode of the seasons up to that point, itemized every weapon they'd ever used, every character that appeared, like, started like taking notes on dialogue style and all this stuff. Like, it's very important to Way Forward that even though we give you experiences that feel Way Forward-y, that it always feels true to the license, that we would never ever, even something like a Barbie or like a SpongeBob, where you wouldn't think, we are still watching all the episodes and understanding the characters and doing the research on the stuff, because we never want a fan to play our games and say they didn't get it, like they didn't understand what is great about these characters. It's really, really important to us.
Yeah, and it shows. That makes me want to ask something that someone asked James last week. What you would do with a My Little Pony Friendship is Magic game? Any ideas off the top of your head? You already have one?
Not well. It's awesome. I mean, like Lauren Faust, her art style is amazing. Like I love the. Have you seen Super Best Friends Forever on the DC Nation?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Is that Lauren Faust again?
Yeah, same lady. So she's.
Oh wow.
I don't know. I didn't give any specific thoughts to it. That's definitely something where that brand has more depth and more wit to it than people will just get at a glance. Like it's a very smart show, and there's a lot going on. One of our concept artists, well, she did concept on Silent Hill. She does like all kinds of like art tasks here. Jessie Seeley is just obsessed with ponies, and so if you look at her desk at WayForward, there are literally like 100 or so ponies and pony art all over the place, and just crazy stuff. So I know she would just go, insane if she was able to work on one of those games. I like it too. I like the brand a lot. I would be very excited to work on that My Little Pony game.
Awesome. Well, I hope somebody hears that and just gives it to you immediately. Tony Perello asks, given the permadeath feature in Aliens Infestation, are you a fan of roguelikes or roguelike elements? You need to just come up with better words for things. No offense, Tony. That's all we have right now is roguelike elements, which I think people understand what that means. But
well, why don't you kind of define that? What do you think he's kind of getting at?
Oh, me? Yeah. Well, I think what he means is games that try to give you an organic environment to be in, and go about doing that by, just like the real world, you don't know what's going to be out there. It feels like it's randomized when you just walk around a city that you've never been to. It's like, why did they put that there? You can't instantly see, a designer put that there in order to make me think or feel this. It feels like a real place due to the randomness. And also it feels like a real place because you can just die and suffer the consequences that come from mistakes without having your hand held. I think that's what that means.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I'm not specifically a fan of that. Like, I'm not specifically even a fan of difficulty or meanness. I'm just a fan of trying new things, of every game having its own identity and its own types of gameplay and its own types of characters and types of story. And even within WayForward, even where we have like a kind of, somewhat consistent, at least in most of our original stuff, like WayForward style, just like making it so that you're just not feeling like you're playing the same game over and over. So there are games that I want to be really not cruel, but I want to be a little darker or more realistic on, like a Silent Hill or an Aliens. But then stuff that, like Centipede and some of the other games, like I directed a Barbie game at one point. There, where you go much more cheerful and much more like happy, and obviously you're not going to put permadeath in a Barbie game because it doesn't really match that. So really, but there's stuff that you can find in there that's very exciting as well. So I'm not specifically a fan of that type of genre, but it was a very interesting and I think the correct decision for certain games that we've done.
Yeah, that makes me wonder. WayForward started off pretty much just 2D because that's where the tech was at the time, and that's also what the size of the studio was at the time. And as you guys have expanded more and more, my cat suddenly attacked me. Sorry, is that distracting? Cat, just one.
It's a very nice looking cat.
Yeah, he's not bad. He's fat. He's friendly. Could you tell me about the process that WayForward has gone through in terms of adapting to polygon-based graphics, if that's been something that's been difficult for the studio or has been difficult for the fans who kind of got into WayForward initially for the 2D. I'm going to throw my cat away. But has that been a thing for WayForward, the whole polygon revolution within the studio to take that on?
I mean, I think that, we come, like we're actually located only about a mile or two from Cal Arts. So and Cal Arts is the studio where most of the Disney animators came from for all the classic like 2D movies. So I think that our inclination is to go 2D at least much more frequently than most dev studios. We're not like jumping at the chance to do polygonal stuff, but it ultimately really kind of comes down to the individual games. I mean, if you're going to do something like a Silent Hill, obviously you have stuff like Lone Survivor that works very well as like a 2D thing, but for the type of game we were going to do, like 3D was just no question. So I think they've been doing 3D forever. Like nobody really knows it, but if you actually look, like even before the original Shantae, like there was a lot of like PC games that WayForward did that are polygonal, like very early polygons and stuff. So we've always had a little bit of polygonal stuff going along with our 2D stuff. I think we're just more known for the 2D stuff because most of our notable brands have tended to be 2D, and almost all of our original stuff has tended to be 2D. As we go forward, though, it's exciting to work in both. I mean, I hate to become a generic answer, but it really comes down to the opportunity. Like when I pitch stuff, when I hear certain brands, I just know immediately, like, that's 2D, it has to be 2D, or this one has to be 3D, or this one has to have these elements in 2D and these elements in 3D, and they're, spun around like this. It really comes down to the individual opportunity.
So you have that kind of stuff fully formed right off the bat. Your inspiration works that way, that you don't have to...
It kind of depends. Like, I mean, so I'll give you two examples. Like, Mighty Switch Force was one where the directors all got together and we said, we want to make a game that is perfect for 3DS, for this new system that's not out yet, and what would be perfect for that. So on that one, we thought first of, like, the depth changes and the swapping and all that kind of stuff. So that was, like, gameplay first. And then another, the exact opposite is something like Centipede, where we were talking with Atari about what, possibilities, and they said, well, what would you do with Centipede? And for whatever reason, I was just kind of thinking about it, and I was assigned to write that. And the character of Maisie, who's the character, like the lead female character, just popped into my head almost fully formed. It's like I saw her, I understood what her struggles were and what her emotions were and what her backstory was, and even what she looked like. And then I worked with Mariel Cartwright, again, who works with us a lot to kind of help develop her visuals. But that was a weird one where even before I knew the specifics of the gameplay, I'm just like, I know this character. Like, she popped into my head. I don't know where she came from, but she totally makes sense for this world, and this other character makes sense for this world. And then we thought of the gameplay that matched that, and it all kind of like, fleshed out from there. But yeah, it's strange. Sometimes we lead with gameplay, and sometimes we lead with characters, and it's just kind of whatever element of inspiration we latch onto first, and then that'll just kind of carry us through the game.
We should talk about Centipede Infestation, because how weird is that?
Yeah.
You get a classic 2600 era brand. You have to bring it into the modern day on, I think that's only on Wii and DS. Is that right?
Wii and 3DS.
Wii and 3DS, my mistake. You add kind of an environmentalist message to it, and a kind of atypical storyline, I would say. And where a lot of people just saw the box and thought, oh, it's just like how they cash in on those Frogger games all the time. It's not anything new that I haven't seen before. But if you actually play it, it's like they turned Centipede into a Ghibli movie. And that's what I thought when I first played it. And then to find out that wasn't just me being weird.
No, actually be some... Yeah, so we got Maisie as the character, and we started pitching. And it comes from the idea of just looking at the elements of a game. Like, anytime we get a game, we look at all of the previous versions of it from the brand, as long as it's existed, and we start thinking what should stay and what shouldn't stay. And we're very picky and choosy. So on some of our games, we'll ditch major elements, and then on other games we'll keep them, and other games will make like smaller stuff a major focus or bring in brand new stuff. And looking at Centipede, like nobody really seemed to know what it was. It was just like, well, there's these bugs, and there's this little thing that shoots the bugs, but there wasn't even like consistency on or consensus on what that is. Some people say it's a little archer, some people say it's a lawn gnome. Like, nobody knows what this is. So I thought, okay, well, that's a character there, and I had Maisie. She popped in my head. So what are these giant bugs then? So I started thinking that what if it was something where like the world has become toxic, and so the bugs are affected, and the bugs are slowly growing. So it's this kind of thing where, like, I picture this world, even though we don't see anybody else aside from the main characters, you picture this world where the bugs, year by year, are getting bigger. Oh, that's what it was. It was like the bomb went off, and we had the goofy idea that the bomb was actually Missile Command let one through. That's what we said. So if the Missile Command let one bomb through, it goes off, and now the whole world is screwed. But the fallout from that made the bugs slowly start growing, and they're growing, and most of the people in society just ignore them. So it's like you'll wake up in the morning, and then there's like a dog-sized like slug in your doorway, and you just say, get out, and you just like kick it out. And Maisie, like a lot of like interesting heroines, is the only one that's saying, don't you guys see this? This is important. Like, we can't just ignore this. She's realizing they're getting bigger, so eventually they're just going to get so big they just eat us. Like, it's going to ruin humanity. We can't just keep ignoring them like rats. And so that's kind of where her story comes from, is that. So as far as like the Ghibli thing, yeah, we had a strong female character. She was, in her teens, and so I ended up doing a lot of research. I bought all the Ghibli movies and specifically started watching stuff like Whisper in the Heart and Kiki and Nazca and all the ones with like a very strong young female lead, and just analyzing them for the character, just inundating myself. So it's all more of like an osmosis thing. Rather than taking notes, I was just watching so much of that stuff that it just started going into my mind and generating and fleshing out the Maisie character. And then with our animatics, we had the animators looking at, you can actually buy these things in Japan, and you can find them in import stores where they're the storyboard books of all the Ghibli movies. And I don't know if you've ever seen those, but they're drawing every single frame. So like when Miyazaki makes a movie, he's drawn every single major pose in the entire movie in the comic book without word bubbles ahead of time. So we would pass those around to the artists, and they would look at those and find influence and as far as the tone. And then when we did the animatics, there were like very specific rules that we had. So it's like the way that you have Maisie, it's like she could never be portrayed awkwardly. So it's like even when like a giant bug eats her and it lifts up and she's sitting on the tongue, she has to be perched like a princess. Like there has to be like a very specific kind of like tone with her. And then with Max, the main character, like he would kind of like stumble into success. Like he could never seem overly confident. It had to kind of come from a goofiness and from a randomness and stuff like that. So yeah, that was one of the most interesting kind of things. Actually, when I was writing the story, I had a chart where I charted, okay, there's going to be X number of sequences, cinematics, and I would list at the left, Maisie is like cold, and then at the other side, now she's warmed up, and then Max is goofy, and then he becomes brave. And I would look at the cross section as I was writing it. I would say, okay, he's about here in the brave meter, and she's about here in the trusting Max meter, and then I would keep doing that subtly within the dialogue. So it's nothing they're saying, but I wanted to give character growth. I guess that's the thing, and that's like what Ghibli is huge on, is just like having these like characters that are in these. I was just watching Spirited Away yesterday, and it's like just watching these frail characters become basically adults. Like they're only like 13 or 14, but they're learning how to like stand up for themselves and how to like be strong and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of that we just kind of like, we really wanted our Ghibli movie. That's what Centipede was.
It's pretty amazing. Not what people thought from seeing the box art, sadly. So you guys, check it out. It's like, they still sell this at the Nintendo World Store, actually. It's one of the few Wii games I saw there. I got it for $10, GameStop. Let's go buy it. I'm not saying that to make Adam rich. I'm saying it because even if you buy it used, just experience this game. It's pretty interesting stuff. Definitely worth the money. On my short list of games that do feel like Studio Ghibli, Ni no Kuni, of course, because Studio Ghibli is on that, and Jade Cocoon and a couple of others.
Yeah,
Wind Waker, probably. We got a few more questions coming in, I think. We got a few more. Oh, yeah, Slow Holmes. He's an old friend. How do you feel about the lack of specifically unattractive protagonists? I wonder what he means by that. I was just watching John Waters' movie, Crybaby, which is, I think, their second Ricky Lake movie. I think Ricky Lake is attractive enough, but she's not typical attractive, and it was totally out of nowhere to have an overweight woman star in a movie when Hairspray came out. And you don't see much of that in video games. I'm a bit sad about that personally. I feel like
if you look at like the AAA games, there probably is. I've seen articles a lot written recently, like why is everybody a 30-year-old white guy with short brown hair? Like it's very kind of the same thing. But I mean, I think it's because those kind of games are becoming more like movies, and when you look at movies, it's the same thing. You get the same kind of like crop of leading men. We're very character focused here, so I don't know as far as like specifically like attractive versus unattractive. We've had characters that are more goofy or more serious, or Maisie was like very kind of like shut in and very kind of quiet, versus Max is just like can't shut up and stuff like that. So I think that, you know, I don't think we've ever done like unattractive characters except for like the goofy stuff like the frog guy and you know, Flip Champ, stuff like that.
Oh, sure.
But that's probably just because we want the characters to be kind of like, you know, appealing across the board. But as far as like attractive versus unattractive, yeah, I don't know. I think that's just because games are becoming more cinematic, and the more you can make decisions that are safe, the safer you are. I guess that's kind of
with the big money. But for me, Mighty Milky Way, a big-hipped green alien girl.
Yeah,
that's not who I feel like. It's not like I immediately identify with how she looks, but I feel like a green-faced, big-hipped alien girl on the inside sometimes. Video games can allow you to be someone who doesn't look like you. You guys, come on.
And especially like the Mighty games in particular are just so pure. Like Lit, for all of its weirdness, is just exactly what I wanted it to be. Milky Way is exactly what Sean wanted. Flip Champs and Switchforce are exactly what Matt wanted. So I think that when you have somebody just totally diving into a character, and like I said, like when we present these characters, they might only have like, you know, 20 lines of dialogue, but we know where they grew up and all their back histories and stuff like that. It subtly comes through, and I think that's what's most appealing. What's unappealing is a character where you're like, they just feel like this is just like standard protagonist number 35. Stuff that's weird, or stuff that is unique, or stuff where you're like, wow, why did she say that line? That seemed kind of bitter. I wonder where that came from. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I think is really engaging and appealing, even more than just like having, you know, a visually attractive character.
Yeah, you can be attractive while physically being pretty weird looking.
Yeah.
But there's different ways to attract players to a character than just by meeting the current standard of beauty, whatever it may be. We have 4 minutes. I wanted to kiss your butt real quick. Do you think that WayForward, the reason you guys are given Batman and Aliens and all of these, and I wanted to hear a little bit too about how that felt to take on the responsibility of those big brands, but also I wanted to ask, do you think it's because your passion for your work and for video games in general shines through, and that bigger publishers take notice of that, and that's why they trust you with the brand?
I mean, we've got good relationships, like, you know, the producers at Warner Brothers that we work with, they're comic book geeks, and I'm a comic book geek, and some of us over here are comic book geeks. So I think that there's a level of trust where as soon as we get into like the pitch meeting, I can throw out any characters and they'll know, and they can throw out any characters and I know, and we're referencing certain things. So I think, we're uber geeks. Like, I think that's one of the things that definitely helps us in the pitch process is most of especially like the designer directors here, everybody just knows every NES era game inside out, like even weird obscure stuff, and we're so influenced by that stuff. But then expanding it to like comic books and expanding it to like later games and stuff like that, the more that you can the more that you can show a publisher, the producers that are going to decide whether you're going to get a game or not, that you know the brand, the more they're going to trust you, because most of them are working at the company because they like that brand, or they have grown to like that brand because they're there. So like, again, you said for the Warner Brothers one, those guys are just Batman addicts. So they just love being in the room with another guy that knows Batman. And I'm like, oh my God, remember that one time that Two-Face, like, you know, Batman Annual 14 Origin, like you can just spout off all this awesome stuff. They get excited to work with you. Same thing with Silent Hill. Tom and I didn't really work together on Contra because I didn't do that much on that game, but we were just two Silent Hill geeks. We're like, what about this? What about this? And you just start like, you know, kind of feeding off each other. It's definitely been a major reason why we've been able to get a lot of the licenses that we've had.
And how was that felt to take on these licenses? Was there a lot of fear when it was you who were going to, especially after Batman Arkham Asylum? I felt bad for anybody taking on a Batman game after that, because it just gave a certain contingent of Batman fans exactly what they wanted in it.
I'll do you one better, is we were in production before, like, we went into production shortly before Arkham came out. So Batman wasn't Batman back then. Batman was like, oh yeah, that awesome comic book and movie, but it wasn't the Arkham Batman yet. And then suddenly we went from like being this little kiddie game to, okay, you guys are the Arkham follow-up. Like, not really, but kind of. So there's a lot of intimidation. But it's phenomenal. It's Batman. Batman is maybe like the best fictional modern character in existence across any medium. Everybody loves him, and so getting to write from him, the high point of my career across anything so far was being in the recording studio and hearing actors read my Batman lines and read my Guy Gardner lines and stuff like that. I remember like we were recording and the Diedrich Bader, who was Batman, a fantastic Batman on the show, was like reading a line, and then he just like went to the director in between a take, and he said, "This is really funny." I just had the biggest smile on my face. That thinks my dialogue is funny. That makes me so happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Big fan of Dietrich Bader. Well, Adam, it was so great having you on the show. We should wrap up, I suppose. I feel like we could keep going. You're one of those guests who I feel like I could talk to all day. I really do appreciate you coming on and listening to Dtoid. Jesus, you listen to that show? Oh my God!
I love Dtoid. Dtoid's fantastic. You guys, you do a great job there.
You're. Thank you for saying. I can't even take that response seriously at all. But people should follow you on Twitter and follow your projects. So, okay. What's your Twitter handle, and what are the things people should check out?
I don't tweet that much. I think it's Adam C. Tierney, or maybe might be Adam Tierney. I'm not sure. Maybe you can find that out and tell them. I don't really tweet that much. I'm not huge into the social type stuff, but
they can follow WayForward. Yeah.
Just go to WayforwardVember.com. That's where we always have whatever our latest games are, and we've got some social media stuff. So on Facebook and Twitter, you can follow WayForward or WayForward Tech. And anytime there's like a big new interview or a big new announcement or something, our community manager always puts that stuff up.
Awesome. And are you working on any new games right now?
Yes, I am working on a new game right now.
I'm excited about that. I know you can't tell me what it is, but
nope.
I'm gonna.
I can say it's a really, really cool franchise, and I'm super pumped about it. It's really, really an awesome one.
I'm excited to hear that. And I think we have Sean Velasco on next Sunday. Yeah. Is he still going to come? That's great. I can't wait to have Sean on. He worked on awesome. Contra 4, Mighty... Was he Milky Way?
Yeah,
he was, right?
Milky Way was his, and he was the one that spearheaded and directed Boy and His Blob, that really... Another movie, another game where it kind of has that really cinematic, almost Ghibli-esque kind of quality to it.
Absolutely, it does. I met him years ago. I can't wait to talk to him again. Anyway, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at TronNauts.com, and the show is on iTunes. Sup Holmes is on iTunes. I'm sorry, I'm still half asleep from that Wii launch thing last night. So check us out on iTunes. Watch us on Dtoid TV on YouTube, and watch us on Twitch every Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks.